It's just, to me, it's just best practice, clean, cut and dried, if we just, and even if, like I said, if it's retroactive, it acknowledges that sometimes someone wakes up and they're sick and they can't come in. That happens to everyone. And it's not punitive, it's just, it's clean and tidy, and then also it allows for, if there is someone who just doesn't call, doesn't show up, doesn't, just, we're here, we're sitting on the dais, and it's like, where's so-and-so? And it's like, I don't know, we haven't heard anything. I hope they're okay.
That has happened.
Yeah, right? And so then if that happens 4 times, then it was like, we wouldn't probably put that on the consent agenda. It'd be, you didn't even call to say you weren't coming,
So what's interesting about that is so under the law, it's 4 consecutive unexcused absences. So that means in theory, so if you do the math of this board right now meets approximately 18 times out of the year. That's it. Under what you all are discussing and under the law, I as a board member, as a board director, could miss a regular meeting every month and still be considered a function, an unexcused absence every month.
Yeah.
Because they're not consecutive. So like I can take October off, come back for the one meeting in November, take December off, and well, so keep in mind. So, but the reason why we're having this conversation, and I'm not saying that I would either. What I'm saying is the reason why we're having the policy conversation isn't about the regular, typical person who is dedicated to this. We're talking about the exception. And you can't always develop the policy and procedure for the exception in the midst of the exception. So that's.
So you set it up. And so
right.
it could be.
It's really a high bar for somebody.
But if you think about it too, if someone didn't call and we were having a work session and it's like the last board meeting, we had a work session, a regular board meeting, we had an executive session, we have work session, executive session, regular board meeting, executive session, that would be 4 consecutive meetings, and that would be.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, there you go, because you said regular board meeting.
Yeah, but we said regular,
Right.
so we'd have to take out that language, but again, it's, yes.
That's the law.
And I think about this too, so thinking about that, so what if, let's say we have a board member who was absent, and what if the majority of the board decides, we're not going to excuse your absence? Then that could put that person in a position of, we decided, and not that we would, but I'm saying, what if you have a board that maybe is, Denise isn't showing up, and, we just really are tired of her, we think she needs to know, so they just choose not to excuse the absence. I think that is kind of that's where I have an issue with the board voting to approve it, having to vote to approve it.
I see where you're coming from, but if you think about that playing out, like you would have to have 4 of those situations where they chose not to excuse your absence in a row. From
And I
regular
said, what if
meetings.
again, we were tired of a particular person because they don't
Right.
show up, they don't, and I don't think, it's amazing what I've heard of happening on boards. And we just say, I'm just tired of dealing with her. She only shows up when she wants to. We're just, as a board, she's not there when we need a quorum. We're just not gonna approve her absence. And it could happen, it could be, I'm just saying, it's just like the outside, right? Just kind of your example as well. Where's the.
We did in Covington, we spelled out what was excused.
Yeah. And so an excused absence could be, again, it's kind of laid out, but it's like an excused absence is, unplanned illness
Well, it's
or.
subjective.
It's subjective.
I'd be concerned about laying out what I believe are reasons for people to be excused. Because it's subjective. I don't feel as though I have the authority to tell you why you.
Oh, absolutely. So, even it could be as simple as an unexcused absence is when someone just is a no-call, no-show. That could be,
I think we could lay that out.
if you said,
that would be.
that's in the business world, if someone's a no-call, no-show that would be the reason. But again, if you want to just make it tidy and do a vote to follow this policy, because you have to, a majority of the board may excuse a board member.
Yeah.
You have to take a vote to achieve that, I think, right?
Yes.
So why not do the opposite? So I think, to get out of the gray and make it less subjective, since you suggested, that a clear definition of unexcused is a no call, no show. Would it be better than to have it on record and document it that there was a no call, no show, rather than getting into the debate and subjectivity of whether or not we agree that this is an appropriate reason for an absence?
My
No.
wondering related to that would be, okay, so the reason I'm not coming is it's date night.
But I
But it's no
Is
call,
that-
it's no
no
show.
calls, no shows.
But then that would be excused if I called.
Well,
Last minute.
subjective, right? And that's true.
You're trying to
Right.
keep your marriage together.
Yeah, but is that something that
Yeah,
you would?
it's a
I don't know.
It could be a crisis.
It's a consecutive.
Right.
Either, but-
Yeah, I mean, that was, I mean, you know, look, I could tell stories, but yeah, I mean, no call, no show, is the way we defined it, it's for.
Right.
Reasonable.
With reasonable, yes, with a yes, and I mean,
So Tim, you cannot have date night.
Well, I'm not saying that I would ever miss a meeting for date night.
Reasonable, no
Yeah.
question.
right, and again, you know, yes, but it's, and maybe it's just like any unplanned absence is only related to illness or injury, right?
Well, so I'll say, let me share an example of something that happened to me a couple of years ago, and actually it was when I chose not to, it wasn't necessarily me, but my son sang the national anthem at homecoming for his
Right.
senior year. I was not missing that, but
Right,
it fell into, and so would that be a
I would
excuse
excuse
or
it.
not?
I would,
But it's subjective, right?
Right.
Because I had people say, I don't care. That's not a reason for you to miss a meeting.
Family date night is no different than spousal date
But
night.
it's a unique experience.
Right.
And it is, so I'm saying, so it could be subjective, right?
Right.
So I think that, but I had somebody tell me that that was not a reason
so
to miss.
I wouldn't doubt it.
called,
I wouldn't
yeah.
doubt it.
I mean-
And I'm just like,
we might want to clarify language as far as, I mean, I look at the regular board meetings and I go, those are nights I have to be free, unless I'm having surgery, right? Or you got in an accident or something. Because those meetings I know about and they're already on the calendar, but a meeting that's called in 2 weeks, well, if someone has something, then we have to identify how, I mean, the law, there's no law that I'm aware of regarding, board directors attending all meetings, because there's no law that I know about regarding that. But again, it's like, it's different if it's, the second meeting or the first meeting in April. Well, we all know when those meetings are, and we've hopefully got them on our calendars. But if it's, tomorrow or next week, we're gonna call this meeting, and your son is singing at the national anthem, well, it seems to me, again, then it goes back to, do we vote on a calendar and agree to a calendar, and then, those things you have to attend? I don't know.
it was a regular meeting,
Right,
and I didn't.
yeah. Yeah,
And you see what, but.
right.
So,
But then again,
that's
it's
what
4
I'm saying.
consecutive unexcused
Right, but I'm
absences, so
saying
even
that-
if it wasn't
but I'm
excused.
saying somebody may not excuse me for that, is what I'm trying to get to.
Right,
So again, it's subjective.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. And so do we want, I like what you're saying about no call, no show. And I don't even, I mean, I don't know, do we want to get into the weeds of a reasonable explanation? Because who determines that?
I think the only thing, I don't know, we just need to be really consistent in saying at the top of the meeting, so-and-so is not going to be here, and it's an excused absence.
Right, leave it at that.
but again, how does the board excuse an absence without a vote? A majority of the board excuse an absence without a vote.
Well, that they've called,
We haven't.
or they've
Yeah.
given,
So that's-
somebody has called.
That's my legal question.
Well, I mean,
No, but it
essentially,
says
you.
president or superintendent, I mean, they'll give an advance
Some
notice
sort
to the chair or the superintendent.
In the law, does it say
Where
the board has to
possible.
excuse it? So that's just, so it's not even, so the board doesn't have
Yeah.
to excuse it.
So it's just saying wherever possible, each board member will give advance
Right.
notice to the president or superintendent.
But it does beg the question, so how does the board, but then it says, but then it delineates between an unexcused and excused absence. So how does the board determine that?
Right.
So if
If we
there's
don't
a,
have to, so what if we set an expectation of, isn't that outlined in our expectation of meeting attendance?
so there is, and there's also, so this also doesn't talk about what actually is an absence. So my body isn't here, but I am here virtually and sharing, or I called in and I'm sharing my opinions and engaged in this over the phone or via Skype
So
or,
that's not.
So technically, am I absent because I'm not sitting at the dais as a board member?
It's 5, 6 years.
So what,
No, it
you know what I
does
mean?
talk
So-
about, but it
right.
does talk.
And another one, but
Yeah.
here it doesn't say that, you know, so you could say the board expects attendance regular of its board members and active engagement, and that can be virtual or physical presence, blah, blah, blah. When those instances cannot happen,
Let me throw something else in here. Now that I'm hearing this and it's going back and forth, I'm not sure Covington is following the law.
This,
Because no, but I mean, how can you, if you're in an elected position, how can you redo what the voters have elected? Because there's tons of people in Olympia that don't show up for hearings and stuff, and they miss and miss and miss, and they do nothing with them because they can't, because they're an elected official. So that brings a question up to me.
So, the particular statute that we're dealing with here is in RCW 28A, which specifically relates to public school districts.
So, okay.
But, I mean, it does beg the question about whether, you know, the board should be voting to excuse members' absences. Because, I mean, although in the law it doesn't talk about excused absences in the law. It says that any absence of any board member from 4 consecutive regular meetings, unless on the account of sickness or authorized by resolution of the board, shall be sufficient cause. It doesn't talk about excused or
It doesn't talk
unexcused.
about active or military.
No, but I think that that's protected under another potential statute, and it's incorporated in there. But the resolution of the board would be the excusing of the absence.
As I say,
Right.
that denotes you have to take some form of action to
Right.
determine whether or not it is excused.
And again, and if we add language even in there that an unexcused absence is defined as a no call, no show, or something like that, like Tim said, it would be really rare. I mean, someone would have to be completely checked out to just miss, you know, 4 consecutive board meetings, essentially. They'd have to be completely checked out anyway.
Yeah, that's different.
But that would be an extenuating, so that would be, I mean, illness also, I mean, when you talk about illness, that also is caring for someone, right? So it would be also
So
caring for someone.
that's why I said that it was authorized by a resolution of the board later, so it could be whatever illness.
But again, if it's just a consent agenda item, like I said, it wouldn't, again, I can't imagine myself. And even if someone was gonna be, and again, we're looking at a policy that's gonna hopefully last for 6 years. There might be, you're absolutely right, there might be someone who has a problem with another board director and has decided they're gonna be punitive. But I think the 4 consecutive absences, would then cover that.
Yeah, I feel like that because that's what we really need to focus on.
Right.
is that's
The majority of the board, approved by the majority of the board would have to vote, yeah?
You wouldn't have to do a roll call, it could be a consent agenda.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is like, there's these absences that we approve, and even in the case of an unexpected illness, then you just do it retroactively, just as a course of business, that's what.
Again, I'm confused. Who's making the decision on this?
The board are collectively right now.
I'm confused. I mean, if we're going to say it's excused or not excused, how do you get to that?
It's on consent agenda and we vote for it.
Okay. Not, okay.
But yeah, I mean, definitely, that's always been my definition of it. Probably the only way you would unexcuse an absence would be if they just, and again, like I said, if someone just doesn't show up for even 2 consecutive board meetings, that's when we would call them and make sure, do a welfare check. Yeah, just in the world of business, if someone is a no call, no show for even 1 day, we would call them, do a welfare check. But if I can, again, probably someone who is a no call, no show for 4 consecutive board meetings is just not interested in being on the board any longer.
So how about this? So taking away the whenever possible and just stating your expectation. Each board member is expected to give advance notice to the chair, or notice as soon as possible, we can change that just a little bit. The chair to president, we'll give her a chair,
Yeah.
or superintendent of his or her inability to attend a board meeting. The board will consider an absence excused, so meaning when you give notice, it is considered excused unless there is a no call, no show. Because that takes away the subjectivity a little bit. It also takes away, or extends some grace in, you woke up sick that morning, you didn't have time to get it in advance, you've given a notice, even if it is your child singing at an event that is a once in a lifetime or whatever, we'll consider that excused unless you just called in for nothing, or not called in at all. The other piece of this that is kind of unclear, or that would cause.
Then you wouldn't have to have that on the consent agenda.
Well, that's the piece of this that's difficult. So the consent agenda piece, so this, say today was a regular meeting. Director Bowen called in this morning or made notice overnight.
Right.
We would have to create a new agenda this morning and then submit that.
No, you
For
No,
so the board's
it would be
gonna-
like what my language was retroactive, so it was, so that you could do it retroactively, so that on the next consent agenda, it would say, due to illness, Director Bowen
Yes,
excused.
so then here raises another question.
Mhm.
If Director Bowen were then present at that meeting, does she get to vote on the consent agenda or does she abstain? I'm following through with this seriously, like I'm going
This is the
through.
same issue as approving minutes.
Right, so then do I go and
Somebody wasn't there.
do I get to vote on my own absence and approving it so that's one vote in my favor no matter what the excuse is? I mean, and I'm seriously trying to go through this process of if this,
Yeah.
then this, so.
Right.
I agree.
What do you think, Tim?
I don't know, I just want to make sure that all your i's and t's are dotted and crossed when we're
Oh,
done.
yeah. Again, this is hopefully, you know,
That's
covered.
sort of a larger question.
What do you think best practice would be?
Well, best practice is different than the legal advice that I'll give you. It's up to you to determine best
Okay.
practice. But I would say that it would be cleanest if the board approves absences, just because of the way that the statute is written. It doesn't talk about excused or unexcused absences. It says absence of any board member from 4 consecutive regular meetings unless on the account of sickness or authorized by resolution. The resolution would be, although it wouldn't be like a formal whereas resolution, the resolution would be, we are saying that that absence was authorized, was excused.
By the consent agenda.
Right, in the consent agenda, which would probably be I think it would be the cleanest way of just handling it.
And allowing for retroactive if it was a case of an unplanned.
Yeah, there would be
I mean-
nothing preventing you from doing a retroactive or an absence, that would occur in the future.
Right.
Right?
And could you not just change the minutes too? Because we've done that before in my commissions. We've
So-
gone back,
so then-
was excused and was unexcused, and then when we found out, we corrected our minutes.
The minutes are a reflection of what happened at that meeting.
Right.
So you can't change the minutes to say that we approved it then because you didn't excuse it.
Well, we've done it.
Well, I mean, you could say, retroactively that was, and it would be reflected in the minutes when you changed it, or not when you changed it, excuse me, when you then authorized the
That's
absence,
what I'm saying.
right?
So no, you can't go back and change minutes to add
And
something that didn't happen. That's
Is-
illegal.
But we could retroactively authorize the
Right.
absence.
You could, right.
so if you have language to retroactive, and also, is there, again, this is something that is for longevity, and we, all of us in this room might not be here when it's reviewed the next time, so we're trying to set it up for the future as well. Is there, we could add language to say this is not intended to be punitive, but to address someone who's abdicated their role, or, something to that effect? I don't know, it's, again, it's not, I think Denise raises a good point. You don't want any interpersonal things to get in the way. It's not to be used punitively, but again, if someone's totally abdicated their position, it would be our responsibility to make sure that, that we have a full board.
And were you taking out whenever possible?
I put it back in because you didn't seem to, so I just added it back the way it was.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, because I was gonna say, well, what would be considered advance, because that could be a whole other piece, right? Of if I call 5 minutes before and say I'm not gonna get that considered, you know what I'm saying? Not that.
Yeah, I mean, I
You could
think,
have a car wreck on the way.
yeah, I think the expectation,
Not be able to.
Not be able to
Yeah.
call.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sorry, we didn't want you to call it that.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, I see you.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
somebody call.
I think what's reasonable, I mean, we.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
Yeah, and
no, I just
again-
thought about
I got
that.
the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yes.
You know, advance.
Yes.
I understand.
And, yeah, and
You're hooked up to license.
again,
board.
I
I gotta
think
go
it's
to
not
the district.
like we're about, it's not, this isn't meant to be punitive.
I just put it in,
Yeah.
I made it in my
Yeah.
version, and then I'm gonna say, see yours for the language that.
Yeah, because then that, again, we could point, so if we or future board members thought somebody being punitive about it, they could say, look, this isn't what this is for. This is to protect the constituents if someone completely advocates their responsibility.
So I have one last, so you are taking a formal vote on the consent agenda as a board about this particular thing.
It's just a standing item.
I just have another question, and I'll ask it now, because I don't want it to come later. So there are 4 board members here. There would be likely 4 board members voting on this particular thing because 1 is absent. It's rare that 2 are. It's happened, but it's rare. What happens when there's a split vote? And there's no majority of the board on this particular decision? What happens? And I don't know, because of the way it's written this way, I just want to make sure that there's not another.
Right.
Is there language around it? There has to be language around that somewhere.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
Okay.
Situation.
To be determined later, when and if it ever happens.
It's the secretary of the board.
I thought it was the
I
secretary.
think, is it the secretary of the board?
Yeah, that's what I
Is
was
the tiebreaker?
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
Fine, good enough.
That sounds right, but I'm
Right.
not sure that's for
I mean,
Policy.
Yeah,
I'd like to.
but again, and yeah, and I think,
It's a rare instance, it's just good to, we don't necessarily
And
put
if
it in
it's on the
policy, but it's a good
consent
operational
agenda,
thing to know
yeah.
if.
I'd like to.
So,
yeah.
okay, so I reflected the language about the vote, it will be added, and then I put some draft, it's not the final language about the action not being punitive, but reflecting the need for the board to be able to operate with a quorum.
So can I say, in the past, we have had absences, and those board members have voted on terms, so we really need to be careful.
I don't know that there would be anything in there preventing them from voting.
I'm not saying there should be, I'm just like, that's just interesting that.
Well, if someone has 3 consecutive absences and then they were voting to, at least they might have 1 vote for this. Oh.
No, I guess,
Can you vote on?
no, if you were absent, can you vote on your meeting minutes? For example, we have done that.
Oh, okay.
Should they be approving meeting minutes when they were not at the meeting?
Well, I don't know if you have to be at the meeting, if you review the minutes, it's not your, so again, minutes only reflect what happened at that meeting. So you can review the minutes and approve the minutes, because you can see them, you can read them.
You can watch the meeting.
Right,
on
so
the
you
meeting.
can watch
it, you can- right.
Yeah, but you're just approving the minutes, so if you can read through them and maybe talks about it, so have, you can.
Right, but we've also taken action, I think people have been absent but have voted for things where they were not present in looking at information or for the work session or something like that. So I don't know, I feel like that has happened in the past, we haven't been careful.
It's related to the larger context, but I'm not gonna include that in this policy, we'll just make a note in.
No.
Okay.
About.
And I wonder, can we tell someone, no, you can't vote on something because you weren't there? I don't know if that's appropriate.
Well, that was not the point, the point is that they weren't informed enough to know what happened.
But you're making assumption.
Because they may have, but they were not, no, I'm talking about the tendencies. We go into, we have a work session, for example, something we're voting on and much, I don't have a good example, but it has happened where there's not a lot of opportunity to have seen or heard information before we voted on it.
So they're making an uninformed vote.
Yeah.
Well, it's an assumption, right?
It's an assumption.
It is an assumption.
Yeah.
It's an assumption.
It's
How
an
much?
opportunity
So what it's saying,
in
but it sounds like you're trying to dictate what somebody knows, how much information someone should have before they're able to vote on it. And that's an assumption. Again,
It's information.
right, but you're
But it
saying,
isn't
well, you don't
assumption.
have enough information, so you should be able to vote on it. I don't think that we can make that
It's a
statement.
logical thing.
So it might be too, there might be work session that someone has to miss, but maybe they've already talked to whoever was gonna be delivering that work session. And that, again, you might not know that they did that on their own, and you probably wouldn't know because.
It should be an expectation that they're doing the research, that
Yeah,
they're watching.
and that's in one of our policies too, that we're looking in the board packets and we're reviewing all available information and asking questions. So I think
Yeah, but I hear what Laura said.
I hear what she's saying, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I just
I
don't
know
know if we can
other
declare
places
Right,
we do
right,
that, we
yeah.
don't do that.
I don't know.
If you're not at a meeting, you don't
Yeah.
know about certain things.
So I did make a note to kind of check in about that. I don't think it would show up here necessarily, Ms. or May, depending on what the answer is, but I'm not making a note to change that right now, other than to get more information about how to proceed.
But I mean, it might be something that we, as a board, and then adding it to policy as an expectation, that if you feel uninformed about something,
Yeah.
Abstain. The expectation would be that if you didn't get enough, enough information that you would abstain from the vote until other, or whatever. I mean, I think there's a policy we could probably add to. I hear what you're saying. Absolutely.
So as excited as I am to want us to kind of try to slip one more in, I do think that we need to spend the last few minutes discussing next steps and if the process just worked in general. And so that I'm prepared to leave you all respectful of the next group's time. So a couple of things. Congratulations. It doesn't seem like you got through a lot. You got through 8. And although that's not what it may not have met your ambitions, the work is hard. It takes time, and you have a cadence of approximately 30 minutes per policy, which isn't a whole lot of time when you're talking about things about the operations of a district that will stand longer than a month, longer than a year. So it's not bad, it's good. Yes, ma'am?
I have a real problem with 1210 because when I went through this, what we're doing now is not what WASDA has changed that to. And I talked to WASDA about it, about.
Organization of the board.
Oh, sorry.
I can't
It's discretionary.
officially run for the board now, if you follow that policy that they want to change.
Oh, for the requirement of the president, I saw that.
And I talked to them, and they said, well, that's because it was per the law, and then she picked it up and looked at the law, and she said she couldn't find it anywhere in there. So I said, what does that mean?
So this is where WASDA and KSD conflict in a way that actually benefits the district. So the district was engaged in updating policies prior to and kind of in the midst of WASDA also engaging in their update work. The previous board did address this and make the change to this policy, and that was in review. Because they recognize that there could be a situation in the future, in the very near future, where when there's a shift in the majority of the board, none of those board members, or the majority of the board, would not be equipped to take on leadership roles. And then what do? You don't not have a chair, you don't not have a vice chair, because the board is new. And so when we get there, I'll talk about, and I will share with you the revised changes of what those options were. Rest assured you are.
Well, I just don't want to be doing something that's totally against the law.
Right, and I think that even under this language, and this language is not clear, it's poorly worded in my opinion, but it says the newly appointed board member would not be eligible to serve as an officer unless a majority of the board had been appointed. And I take that had been appointed as newly appointed. So in this case, we do have a new majority in the board.
Newly elected.
Yes.
Yes.
And
But
so
they
maybe
say
it's the
newly
appointed
appointed.
versus elected thing, which is the confusing part of this, at least for me. When I was reading
It's
through
very
this,
confusing.
I wasn't sure what that sentence said myself.
And it would be difficult to get to a majority of newly appointed board members because there are only small situations where board members are appointed and not right. So it'd be hard to
But I
mathematically
just
get
wanted to
there.
make sure that I wasn't doing something against the law here.
No, I have notes too that we really need a long discussion.
And I was looking through the laws related to this too.
And there's
last night,
nothing
and I
in the
couldn't
law.
find
And she
anything.
said they took it directly from her. I said, show me. So she was on the phone and And she's, oh, I can't really see that, maybe we didn't.
I'm not saying that there's nothing there, there could be something there, but when I was reviewing things yesterday, I did not find anything related to that.
And I said, I just want to make sure I don't read
Start.
Not that.
Discretionary for whatever reason.
Plenty of probably legal.
So, moving forward, what will likely happen next, just so you're aware where we are. So, yes, ma'am?
Sorry to interrupt, but Michael and Paul may be coming in the doors and I'm off.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to, sorry.
So, the changes that were made, the comments are there, they will be updated and put into a finalized version that will go to the board in a formal way, likely the first meeting in March would be where I'd like to see those go forward. And so you'll see them there, and you will have to take action, so they won't be informational. Typically what happens when we've gotten to this point and the board agrees on the comments and changes, they show up in the consent agenda, because this is the space where you discuss them. And so typically it's been my cadence to not bring policies to the board that are still up for discussion. So when they show up on consent agenda because we got to a point where you all have approved them, discussed them, and we're ready to move. So that's the way I'd like for these to move forward. You will of course see them in advance because they're going to the board agenda and all of those pieces, and they will be there so that would be the Friday before. So what is that, the 6th-ish maybe? Or no later than that. If I can get them to you before that point, I will send them to you, but just note that you cannot reply to the group about any comments or things. You can reply to me, but you cannot reply all to the group back. And if that does happen to happen, then that would be when something would show up on the discussion and approval, so I could bring that back to the board as a collective about an issue or comments that would require some substantive change or something. So that's what happens next. As far as continuing the work and what happens next, did the process work for you? Meaning, it didn't appear that anybody had trouble accessing their OneNotes. There didn't seem to be any crossover violation of anyone being able to see anyone else's, which was great. But I don't want to continue to use this as a strategy if it's not working in terms of that. Okay. So we will, right now, our cadence is to continue through series by series. I will say though, per even Director Hamada, you expressed interest in a few other policies. There have also been some small law changes that require some policy review. So I may send you notice for our next round of here's some things that per law or other kind of this need to be addressed. The same goes as well, I would say, board work with Dr. Watts. If there are issues of concern about the district and its operations where you would like to see policy or you're questioning if policy exists or if it should exist or have an idea, so that can come forward and wouldn't wait until maybe the series in which it would show up. So that we can make sure we get those in and they're not waiting until the end of the year. It's designated series number time.
Right.
We do not have a set next time to meet. I would assume that would come working with the board and with Karen and Dr. Watts around scheduling. And so, congratulations on your completion of your first policy session.
Thank you.
I have one quick question. How can we convey to Leah to bring her up to speed on all this? I mean,
So,
is it our responsibility to kind of work with her?
so all comments that were typed written were shared. Okay. Right. And I would say that for me, physical presence is not necessarily necessary for this work as long as your ideas are expressed. So suppose we have our next session scheduled for next Saturday, which it is not, and I'm not suggesting that we do that. We know that Director Bettinger wouldn't be here, wouldn't be able to be present. I'm not even sure that it would be appropriate for her to call in. But if she'd done her comments, we could go through this same process and hear her voice, even though she would not necessarily be in the room. So if as we go through this work and any of you as directors are not going to be present, it'd be helpful that you especially then do the pre-homework of doing your notes in a formal way, so that your voice is always at the table when we get to those comments and discussion.
And she will actually, so once they're done, post them, she'll be able to review.
Yep, she will get them before, right, and see the, yeah.
Right.
And I offer this, we've at least begun the conversation, phone a friend, so that we're all helping. If context, because you will have access to it. I'm sure there'll be some questions, so staff are prepared also to offer that as just a big business.
I just wanted to know about it.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to hear about it.
So that's it. You all have a few minutes of break or we'll transition. I will say that I will get Karen these just as a handouts. And like I said, they're not new, but so they can be posted as well today. Supplemental information.